Okay. Did you hear where the characters live in the story?
Yeah.
Where'd they live?
No, I don't.
Tree Gap? They live in Tree Gap, right? So let's read our story again. This time, I'm going to ask you a few questions about the story. If you know the answer, tell me. But if you don't know the answer, just ask for help. Just simply say, I need some help on this question, okay? You ready? Yes? Okay. So we're going to go back to the prologue. 3 events happen on a hot day in August. First, May Tuck goes to meet her sons in a town called Tree Gap. Next, Winnie Foster decides to run away from home. Last, a stranger comes to Tree Gap. Could these events be related? Okay, you ready to listen? So now I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay? Winnie Foster is 10 years old. She lives with her family in a cottage next to the woods. The woods are owned by Winnie's father. Most people do not go into the woods because it is scary. Instead, they walk on the road around the woods. Where does Winnie Foster and her family live? Do they live in a cottage, an apartment, a cabin, or a beach house? Where does Winnie Foster and her family live? The correct one is cottage. Winnie Foster and her parents live in a cottage. Your turn. Where does Winnie Foster and her family live? Great job. Winnie Foster and her family do live in a cottage. Okay. You ready to keep reading? Yeah? Okay. On this morning, May wakes up early. Her husband, Angus, is still sleeping. She is excited about seeing her sons, Miles and Jesse. She has not seen them for 10 years. The only thing she takes is a music box to play along the way. She leaves the cottage without looking at herself in the mirror. She knows what she looks like. She and her family have looked the same for 87 years. So my next question for you is, how long have May and her family looked the same? Have they looked the same for 10 years, 1 week, 2 months, or 87 years?
87 years.
Great job. May and her family have looked the same for 87 years. That's crazy, isn't it? Okay, let's keep reading.
Okay.
Is she okay? Oh, yeah, she's doing great. That was sweet of you to check on her. She's just watching. All right, are you ready to keep reading?
Yeah.
Also that morning, Winnie sits on the grass near her cottage talking to a toad. She is bored and unhappy. She wants to be free like the toad. She wants to do something important. Winnie is so unhappy, she decides to run away from home. So my next question for you is, who is Winnie talking to in the morning? Is she talking to a toad, her mother, a bear, or a boy? Let's read a few more sentences and see if we can figure that out. Also that morning, Winnie sits on the grass near her cottage talking to a toad. She is bored and unhappy. She wants to be free like the toad. Now you hear that she's talking to a toad? Good job. Winnie is talking to a toad in the morning. Great work. Okay. Later that day, when Winnie is catching fireflies in the yard, a stranger walks by her house. Winnie thinks he smells bad like death. Winnie does not like the stranger. So, what is Winnie catching in the yard? Is she catching beetles, fireflies, squirrels, or grasshoppers?
Firefly.
Great job, you got that quick. Winnie is catching fireflies in the yard. Awesome work. Uh-oh, what's wrong?
She loves fireflies.
Do you like fireflies? They're pretty, aren't they? They're awesome. All right, so we got one more paragraph. Ready? You excited? The stranger stops and asks how long Winnie has lived near the woods. Winnie says her family has always lived there. Her father knows everyone and everything in Tree Gap. Winnie's grandmother sees her talking to the stranger. She tells Winnie to come inside. So my last question for you is, who does Winnie's father know in Tree Gap? Does Winnie's father know everyone and everything? A teacher, a grocery store clerk, or a preacher? Let's read those sentences again. Winnie says her family has always lived there. Her father knows everyone and everything in Tree Gap. Winnie's grandmother sees her talking to the stranger. So who does Winnie's father know in Tree Gap? A grocery store clerk, everyone and everything, a teacher, or a preacher? Hey, thank you for working with us today. Thank you. Okay, let's read the sentence again. Her father knows everyone and everything in Tree Gap. So who does Winnie's father know in Tree Gap? Everyone and everything, a grocery store clerk, a teacher, or a preacher?
Everyone and everything.
Great job. He does know everyone and everything in Tree Gap. Okay. You did a fantastic job reading that story. Can I get a high five? Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to finish drawing.